The restaurant buzzed with warmth and celebration, golden fairy lights glinting above laughter-filled tables as wine glasses clinked and congratulations flew through the air. My coworkers sat around me in high spirits, celebrating another successful quarter, but for me, tonight was supposed to be more. It was supposed to be my night. After 5 relentless years of loyalty, grit, and unseen hours fixing fires and mentoring new hires, I had every reason to believe the senior manager promotion was mine. Martin, my boss, had all but promised it, sprinkling hints and nods for months. As he rose at the head of the table, tapping his wineglass to command the room's attention, my heart thudded with anticipation. I adjusted my navy blue dress, bracing for my name, my moment. But instead, Martin's voice echoed with betrayal. Tonight, I want to recognize someone truly exceptional. Someone who has made a remarkable impact in just 3 months. 3 months? My stomach sank. Then he turned, beaming, to Chloe, our newest hire. Chloe, your leadership and innovation have blown us away. It is my honor to promote you to senior manager. Applause thundered around me, but I sat frozen, the stem of my champagne glass nearly snapping in my grasp. My forced smile ached. Chloe, sweet, naive Chloe, looked like she was about to faint from joy. I clapped too, because what else could I do? Rage? Cry?
Demand why I had been strung along, used, and discarded? Martin glanced my way briefly, tossing out a lazy compliment. And Emma, of course, we appreciate all you do. Then, with a smug grin, he added, maybe take notes from Chloe. She's doing more already. Laughter. Chloe squirmed in discomfort, but the damage had been done. That moment, that stinging slap of public humiliation, became the catalyst. I smiled. I toasted. I played the loyal team player. But beneath that calm exterior, something hardened. Something sharpened. As the evening wound down and my coworkers spilled into the night, I slipped outside, letting the cool air cut through my fury. My fingers moved quickly on my phone, firing off a crisp email to HR. Subject, resignation letter. Effective immediately. I attached the document I had quietly drafted months ago, saved for a moment like this, when I'd finally had enough. I hit send. And just like that, the chains fell away. But I wasn't done. On Monday, Martin would walk into the office expecting my usual early morning summaries and client prep decks, only to find silence and the start of his unraveling. Because what he didn't know was that I wasn't just leaving. I had already accepted a role at a competitor, a rising firm hungry for the very leadership and skill he'd spent years underutilizing. And I wasn't coming alone. 3 of our top junior analysts, people I had mentored and shielded, had followed me. We were building something smarter, leaner, more agile. And Chloe? She'd quickly find out that management wasn't just about creativity. It was about trust, consistency, and hard-earned respect. Martin's smug smile would fade with each client we took. And me? I wouldn't need to say a word. The best revenge wasn't rage. It was reinvention. And mine had just begun. The office had a different energy that Monday morning. Eerily calm, deceptively routine. I walked through the front doors, not as an employee, but as someone already gone. My resignation sitting in Martin's inbox like a time bomb. The receptionist greeted me with her usual cheer, unaware. Near the break room, my coworkers chatted over coffee, and Chloe, radiant in her newly promoted glory, sat at her desk, clearly still basking in the afterglow. I held no bitterness toward her. She played no part in the betrayal. That belonged to Martin, the man who looked me in the eye for months, dangling promises like bait, only to toss me aside the moment someone shinier walked in. I took my time settling in, powering up my computer with practiced ease, waiting for him to come to me. And like clockwork, his door swung open. "Emma, my office, now." The chatter died. Heads turned. Even the air seemed to pause. Martin's voice wasn't commanding. It was frantic. I rose slowly, smoothed my blouse, and walked into the lion's den. His office door clicked shut behind me, muffling the tension outside. He sat behind his desk, my printed resignation letter gripped tightly in his hand. His eyes searched mine for some explanation. "You're leaving?" he asked, stunned. "Yes," I replied evenly, taking a seat across from him. Effective immediately. "But why? This is out of nowhere. We didn't even talk about this." I tilted my head, letting the sarcasm drip from my words. "Kind of like Chloe's promotion, right?" His jaw clenched. "Emma, that wasn't personal. She outperformed expectations. She's been here 3 months." My tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. The weight of 5 years of overlooked labor did the work for me. "Emma, you're an asset. You've always been valuable. I don't want to lose you." He leaned forward, voice dropping into something that almost resembled sincerity. "You're making an emotional decision." I allowed myself a dry laugh. "I sent that email Friday night. If this were emotional, you'd have heard my heels storming out then and there." This is strategic. Planned. The color began to drain from his face, his once cocky demeanor fracturing at the edges. "So what's next? Going to one of our competitors?" He scoffed, claws coming out now. "Don't forget, Emma, we have non-compete clauses." I stood, calm, collected, dangerous. "I don't need a competitor," I said smoothly. "While you were too busy ignoring the woman holding this place together, someone else noticed." His brow furrowed. "What are you talking about?" I didn't rush the reveal. "Remember Andrew Carter? The CFO you forced out last year because he refused to coddle your ego?" His knuckles whitened on the edge of his desk. "He reached out a few months ago. He's building something of his own, a smarter firm, cleaner leadership, better values, and he asked me to lead his operations department." Martin's silence spoke louder than rage. "And here's the best part," I continued, stepping toward the door. "I'm not going alone. You remember the junior staff you've been too proud to notice? They're already on board. This team, the one you took for granted, we're rebuilding, with purpose." I paused, hand on the doorknob, and gave him one final steady look. "Good luck keeping this place running, Martin. It turns out the backbone of your company had a name. It was mine." Then I walked out, not just of his office, but of a version of myself that had once accepted crumbs and called them respect. This was no breakdown. This was a breakthrough. The hum of the office dulled as I walked through it with deliberate calm, the weight of my resignation already reverberating through the walls. Martin had just been left in his office, speechless, holding the letter that confirmed I was no longer his employee, no longer the woman he could string along with empty promises. He had no idea that Friday night, the very moment he publicly humiliated me by giving my promotion to someone with 3 months of tenure, I called Andrew Carter. Yes, the same former CFO Martin had driven out with his arrogance. Andrew had offered me a director-level position once before, and out of loyalty I had turned him down. But loyalty dies in betrayal's shadow. When I called him after the party, he made the offer again. This time, I accepted. Martin's face had gone pale when I told him, disbelief etched into every tight line of his jaw. "You're leaving for Andrew's company?" he asked, like he couldn't quite wrap his head around it. "I start next Monday," I said, watching the reality settle in. "Emma, be reasonable. This company has been your home for 5 years. We can work something out." "I don't want to talk," I cut him off, steady and clear. "The decision is final." His desperation morphed into a feeble threat. "You won't be able to come back." I smiled as I turned to leave. I won't need to. Then, with one last glance over my shoulder, I delivered the truth he should have learned long ago. Funny how you only realize someone's worth when they walk away. I shut the door gently, leaving Martin with nothing but the consequences of his own short-sighted arrogance. Back at my desk, the silence in the open office space felt almost reverent. Every head turned subtly, every conversation stilled, as if the entire building sensed a shift. I opened my computer one last time and forwarded my resignation email to the entire leadership team. Subject: Official Resignation Notice. Effective immediately, I am stepping down from my position at the company. It has been an experience I will not forget. Best, Emma. Simple, polished, devastating. The message rang out louder than any mic drop. Whispers rippled like wildfire. People stopped pretending to work. My co-worker Zoe, one of the few decent people in that office, approached with wide eyes. "Emma, is it true?" I gave her a small, steady smile. "Yeah, it's time." She exhaled, stunned. "Wow. I mean, I get it, but I didn't think you'd actually go." "Neither did Martin," I said, half smirking. She scoffed. "Well, he's a damn fool. Everyone knows you earned that promotion." All around me, curious co-workers edged closer, eavesdropping under the guise of busyness. Chloe peeked up from across the room, her gaze flitting between me and Martin's office, unsure whether to feel guilty or grateful. She didn't speak. I didn't expect her to. I no longer needed her words. 10 minutes later, as I packed the last of my things, my inbox pinged with a meeting request. Subject: Urgent. Let's talk. The desperation in the subject line nearly made me laugh. I took my time strolling back to his office. When I entered, the air was heavy with something new: regret. Martin looked smaller now, as if the gravity of losing me had finally begun to crush him. "Emma," he said, leaning forward, "you're making a rash decision." I chuckled softly. "Martin, I gave you 5 years. I bled for this company while you overlooked everything I brought to the table. The only rash decision here was yours." His lips pressed into a tight, defeated line. He had no comeback, because there wasn't one. I turned and left for good, carrying nothing but my dignity and a future far brighter than the one I was leaving behind. Martin's voice cracked with desperation as he leaned forward, trying to salvage the unraveling moment. "Look, I admit I mishandled the promotion, but we can fix this. I'll match whatever Andrew's offering you." I tilted my head, amused. "You don't even know what Andrew's offering me." "Does it matter?" He fired back quickly. "We'll figure something out. Better salary, more flexibility, maybe even—" I held up my hand, silencing him. "You don't get it, do you?" The room quieted under the weight of my words. I leaned in slightly, voice steady. "It was never about the money, Martin. It was about respect." His jaw flexed, but he said nothing. "I don't want to stay somewhere where my work only matters when I threaten to walk, where I'm invisible until I'm inconvenient." The corner of his mouth twitched, frustration tightening his expression. "Emma, be reasonable. You're walking away from a stable position. For what? A startup that might not even survive?" I smiled, not with malice, but with clarity. That startup is led by someone who values my contributions, and I'd rather bet on myself than stay in a place that treated me like I was disposable. I stood, picking up my bag with finality. "Goodbye, Martin." And I walked out, leaving behind not just a job but years of being overlooked and underestimated. Packing my things was surreal. As I passed rows of cubicles with my box in hand, I caught a few soft claps, small, subtle acknowledgments of a silent triumph. They knew. They'd seen it all. Chloe finally stood and approached, guilt flickering across her face. Emma, I didn't know. I raised an eyebrow. Didn't know what? Her mouth opened, then closed. She didn't have to say it. She knew. Maybe she hadn't plotted it, but she benefited from it. I softened my voice. It's fine, Chloe. Enjoy the promotion. She winced, and I stepped into the elevator without another word. As the doors closed, I released a long breath, feeling the weight lift off my chest. This wasn't an end. It was a beginning. 1 week later, I stood outside the glass facade of Carter and Associates. Sleek, modern, humming with potential. The air buzzed with momentum, the kind that comes from people building something with purpose. As I stepped inside, the energy was different. No politics, no hierarchy games, just drive and vision. The elevator ride up to the top floor reflected a new version of me in the mirrored walls. Shoulders squared, eyes lit with something I hadn't felt in years. Excitement. And when I stepped into my new office, a real one, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a door I could actually close, I knew I'd made the right choice. The first leadership meeting was everything my old company had failed to be. Sharp minds, collaborative ideas, respect. Halfway through, Andrew turned to me with a confident smile. Emma, I want you to lead our new operations restructuring. Your experience makes you the best person for it. No power plays, no performance tests, just recognition. I'd love to, I said simply. Around the table, nods of approval followed. Here, my voice didn't have to fight to be heard. It was expected. 2 days later, a message from Zoe lit up my phone. Zoe. Emma. OMG. Martin is losing it. Ever since you left, everything's a mess. I smirked, reading on. Zoe. He had to call an emergency meeting because no one knows how to handle half the things you used to do. I locked my phone and smiled to myself. Not out of spite, but from the quiet satisfaction of knowing that I had been the backbone all along, and only now were they seeing it. But it didn't matter anymore. I wasn't going back. I had already stepped into a future where I didn't have to beg for respect. It was built into the foundation, and I was finally building something for me. The moment I stepped back into the glass office building I once called home, it was as if the air itself shifted. The receptionist froze mid-greeting, eyes wide with uncertainty. Was I a returning employee, a visitor, or a ghost of corporate karma come to collect? As I walked past rows of desks, familiar faces glanced up, then quickly back down, their whispers barely concealed. I didn't need to say a word. My presence was louder than any announcement. Upstairs, Martin was waiting, nervous, hollow-eyed, and trying to hold together a ship that had begun to sink the moment I walked away. The irony dripped heavier than the overpriced espresso they used to praise in staff meetings. Martin had once laughed in my face, belittled me publicly, and handed my promotion to someone less experienced simply because she was shiny and new. Chloe, the so-called rising star, was now floundering, her lack of leadership and operational depth becoming embarrassingly apparent. I had built that department's foundation with quiet precision, and now, it was crumbling without me. Zoe had kept me updated, her texts like small triumphs in real time. Chloe is drowning. The clients want you. Martin's under fire. The board is livid. It wasn't revenge I sought. It was validation. And I didn't even have to lift a finger to get it. Clients like Dawson and Company reached out of their own accord, not because I asked, but because they trusted me. They remembered who handled their crises, who picked up the phone at midnight, who delivered results. It had never been the company. It had always been me. So when my assistant told me Dawson was on line 1, I knew it was only the beginning. Emma, Mark Dawson's voice had said, confident and direct. "If you're running things at Carter and Associates, we want in." And within days, more followed. Not stolen, earned. Now, here I was, standing outside Martin's office at exactly 10 a.m., his desperate email invitation burning a hole in my inbox. I knocked once, then walked in, calm and composed, dressed not for battle but for business. He stood as I entered, gesturing stiffly to the chair across from him like a man trying to reclaim control he no longer had. "Emma," he began, attempting a cordial tone, "thank you for coming." I said nothing, just smiled politely and waited. The silence made him squirm. "I wanted to explore if there's a path for us to work together again, perhaps in a senior role. I'm willing to offer competitive compensation, team control, whatever you need to return." His words stumbled over each other, carefully rehearsed but hopelessly transparent. I leaned forward slightly, watching him closely. "Interesting," I said, measured and cool. "Tell me, Martin, was it Chloe who suggested this? Or the clients you're bleeding?" His jaw tightened. He didn't answer. "Let me be clear," I continued. "I didn't come here today to negotiate. I came because I wanted you to see what it feels like when someone you undervalued walks away and thrives without you." His eyes flickered. It was never about money. It was about being seen, respected, and given what I'd earned, not as a favor, but as a fact. And you failed to do that. He swallowed hard, but I wasn't done. "So no, Martin, I won't be coming back. Not for double the salary, not for a corner office, because the power you thought you held? I reclaimed it the day I left." I stood, smoothing the front of my blazer with graceful finality. "Good luck, Martin. You're going to need it." And as I walked out of his office for the last time, heels clicking with quiet satisfaction, I didn't feel anger or even vindication. I felt free. I had rewritten the narrative, and this time, I was the one holding the pen. Martin looked nothing like the man who once dismissed me with smug indifference. As I stepped into his office, he sat hunched behind his desk, dark circles under his eyes, fingers tapping a frantic rhythm, a shell of the arrogant leader who once told me to take notes. "Thanks for coming in," he said with a forced smile. I sat, calm and composed, my silence pressing heavier than any words. "We need you back," he confessed, his voice a blend of desperation and pride. "I underestimated your role, Emma, but we can fix this. A raise, a senior executive title, full authority over your department." He looked at me like I should be flattered, like his sudden epiphany erased 5 years of dismissal. I tilted my head and let the irony hang between us. "You had 5 years, Martin. 5 years to promote me, to respect me. Instead, you handed my work to someone with 3 months of experience and told me to watch and learn." His face tightened, but I didn't stop. "And now, after losing key clients, after watching your company crumble, suddenly, you remember my name?" Silence. Heavy. Honest. If I hadn't left, would I be sitting here with this offer? Or is this just panic control? The truth flickered in his eyes before he looked away. That was all the answer I needed. "Emma, be smart," he tried again, his voice cracking. "You built so much here. Don't throw it all away." I stood, slow and deliberate, brushing my blazer smooth. "You still don't get it. I never needed you. You needed me. And now you finally see it." At the door, I turned one last time. "Take notes, Martin," I said softly, returning his words like a knife wrapped in silk. "Maybe next time you'll learn to value the people who actually make your company run." Then I walked out. No hesitation, no second glance. Back at Carter and Associates, my world bloomed. The clients followed, not because I asked, but because they trusted me. They remembered who delivered, who stayed late, who fought for their success. And it wasn't Martin. Our client list doubled. The atmosphere buzzed with vision and respect. And then, on a calm Friday afternoon, Zoe sent me a message that made me laugh out loud. Martin just got fired. The board couldn't recover from the damage. He's gone. I leaned back, coffee in hand, smiling at the poetic justice. Martin had thought I was disposable. Turns out, he was. And me? I was exactly where I was meant to be, respected, empowered, and finally, undeniably seen.